Reporting for us live, thank you for that. While the shutdown has already affected several branches of government, some local nonprofits fear they'll soon feel the effects too.
Namely domestic violence shelters, who typically get plenty of their funding from Washington. Elizabeth Olvera joins us now live in the newsroom after speaking with advocates to end domestic violence there in Carson City. And Liz, have they had to cut any of their services just yet?
Well, luckily not just yet, Landon, but if the shutdown does continue into the next few weeks, they fear that they'll have to find creative ways to fund their often life-saving services.
I think a shutdown it's not necessarily fair to anybody.
Advocates to End Domestic Violence provides a vital service to abused women and children in northern Nevada. It's the largest area shelter with 51 beds in a state that is no stranger to domestic violence.
We rank number 3 out of the nation for women likely to be killed by an intimate partner.
And a large chunk of their funding comes from the U.S. government.
We do about $600,000 a year. And so it's roughly half of our budget.
About 90% of that money goes to pay the salaries of more than a dozen crisis intervention staff members. They provide a number of life-saving services, including restraining orders.
You know, my staff all have rents and mortgages and daycare.
As of right now, the shelter is fully functioning. But with grant funding tied up in federal bank accounts during the shutdown, Lee is uncertain what's next.
It's been a while since it's been this serious.
They've dealt with a government shutdown before. Lee took care of it then by taking out a loan. The only problem with that,
be able to repay that when the grant comes through, but you don't get the funds to pay the interest on it.
But the center does have a backup source of revenue that it hopes might help offset the costs of delayed grant funding this time around. Its thrift store, Classy Seconds.
We're able to have some unrestricted funds in case of emergency.
Although they'd much rather use that for other emergencies like broken water heaters or roof repairs. But if the shutdown continues just a few more weeks, they'll have to dip into it anyway and hope there's enough funding to keep saving lives.
It's not something you can say, okay, we're going to shut down part of the shelter or we're going to not answer any calls. You still have to do that. I'm hoping that they're able to come to some kind of resolve and figure this out.
Now, although Lee hopes that it doesn't get to that point, donations are always accepted at their shelter. Some of the most needed items include basic things like toiletries, detergent, diapers, and formula. If you'd like to help out, you can visit our KTVN News app for information. Covering the story live in the newsroom, Elizabeth Olvera, 2 News.